In August 1945, Japan was about to lose the Second World War. But inside a secret military compound in northeast China, Japanese military doctors and scientists were using prisoners in deadly experiments. The Soviet Union invaded that region. The officers inside Unit 731 gave one final order: destroy everything. Documents were burned, buildings were blown up, and every remaining prisoner was killed so that no witness could survive. The workers were then ordered to leave the compound, return to Japan, and never speak about what had happened there. Soon after, Japan surrendered, and the war was over. But what happened next was even more shocking. American investigators began studying Japan's biological weapons program. Instead of putting many of the people responsible on trial, the United States made a secret deal. In exchange for information from their experiments, several important members were protected by the United States. And this secret organization was called Unit 731. Behind its walls, many men, women, and children were infected with deadly diseases and used in cruel human experiments. How could trained doctors and scientists take part in something like this? To understand that, we have to return to the early 1930s. At that time, Japan was expanding its empire across East Asia. In 1931, the Japanese military invaded Manchuria, a large region in northeast China. Japan created a controlled state there called Manchukuo. Because the area was far from Japan and controlled by the military, it became an ideal place for secret research. One Japanese army doctor saw a major opportunity there. His name was Shirō Ishii. Ishii was an intelligent, ambitious person and deeply interested in biological weapons. These were weapons that used germs to spread diseases such as plague, cholera, typhoid, and anthrax. Biological weapons had been banned by the Geneva Protocol of 1925. But Ishii reached a disturbing conclusion. He believed that if countries had agreed to ban these weapons, they must be extremely powerful, because disease could spread quietly through food, water, and people. The enemy might not even know they had been attacked by many germs. With support from the Japanese military, Ishii created a secret research program in Manchuria. The first center was built at a prison called Jongma Fortress. After that facility closed, Ishii received permission to build a much larger complex near the city of Harbin. The new facility stood in an area called Pingfang. It later became known as Unit 731. Officially, the organization was called the Epidemic Prevention and Water-Purification Department. The name made it sound as though the unit was protecting soldiers from disease. In reality, it was developing disease as a weapon. The Pingfang complex was enormous. It covered several square kilometers and contained more than 150 buildings like laboratories, factories, prisons, and facilities for producing bacteria. Thousands of doctors, scientists, and soldiers connected to Ishii's network. At the center of the complex were prison buildings. The victims were mainly Chinese civilians and prisoners, Mongolians, and people from other groups were also held there. Men, women, and children became the prisoners. Some were resistance fighters, some were political prisoners, others were arrested only because the military police considered them suspicious. They were often brought to the facility at night inside vehicles with no windows. Once they entered Unit 731, their names were taken away. They were given numbers. The workers called them maruta, meaning logs. This word helped the staff stop thinking of them as human beings. When one prisoner died, the number was crossed from a record. The next prisoner could take their place. There are no documented survivors from the prison inside Unit 731. The prisoners were kept healthy at first. Researchers wanted their bodies to be in normal condition before an experiment began. Then, doctors deliberately infected them with diseases. Some prisoners were told they were receiving vaccinations, but the injections actually contained plague, cholera, typhoid, anthrax, or other dangerous germs. Doctors recorded what happened next. They measured fever, pain, organ damage, and the time it took for the prisoner to die. In some cases, doctors operated on living prisoners to see how a disease was affecting the body. These operations were often performed without anesthesia. Their body was treated only as a source of information. Unit 731 also carried out frostbite experiments. Winters in Manchuria were extremely cold. The Japanese military used prisoners to study how frostbite damaged the body and how it could be treated. Prisoners were taken outside, and parts of their bodies were exposed to freezing temperatures. Researchers then tested different ways of warming them. Other prisoners were placed in low-pressure chambers to study conditions faced by pilots at high altitude. Some were exposed to poisonous gases. Others were tied in open fields and used to test grenades and other weapons. These crimes were not the work of one uncontrolled doctor. Unit 731 was an organized military program. It had government funding, research divisions, factories, and trained staff. But the program did not remain inside the laboratory. Researchers wanted to know whether disease could be used against entire cities. Ishii's researchers became especially interested in bubonic plague. Plague could be carried by fleas living on rats. Unit 731 bred huge numbers of fleas, infected them with plague, and searched for ways to spread them over populated areas. Normal metal bombs produced too much heat and could kill the germs. So researchers developed ceramic bombs that could break open in the air and release infected fleas. Japanese aircraft later dropped plague-infected fleas over Chinese communities, including Ningbo and Changde. Other attacks contaminated wells, food, and clothing. In some cases, infected food was given directly to civilians. People became sick without knowing that they had been deliberately attacked. The disease then spread to others. The exact number of deaths remains uncertain because records were destroyed and epidemics continued after the attacks. However, biological weapons created by Unit 731 and related units killed far more people outside compared than inside prisoners. Shirō Ishii escaped to Japan along with the others. After Japan surrendered, American investigators began questioning members of the biological weapons program. The United States wanted Unit 731's research. The Cold War was beginning, and American officials feared that the Soviet Union might obtain the information first. A deal was made. Ishii and several important members received protection from prosecution in exchange for their data. The crimes were mostly kept out of the main Tokyo war crimes trials. Later historians argued that much of Unit 731's research was crude and less useful than American officials had expected. But the agreement had already protected many of the people. Some former members of the Unit 731 later worked in hospitals, universities, and in government institutions. They never get punishment for their crimes. Unit 731 is not only a story of cruel experiments, it is a warning of what can happen when science loses its humanity.